What's up? Welcome to the Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 14, and I am Adam Choi. For now, to follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and I'm at Adam Choi on Instagram as well if you want to follow me. And of course, I have no affiliation with Tedeschi Trucks Band. This is not an official podcast or anything. I'm just a fan. So, today's guest is keyboard player, piano player, organ player, musician, Carey Frank. From the Sunshine State to the Golden State, music has always been a big part of Carey's life and family, having taken his first piano lesson at 3 years old. Gigging since his high school days, he's had some great moments in his career, as we cover a bunch of them, including what it was like to get the call from TTB and do a few shows for them while filling in for Kofi. Let's just get into it. Here's Carey Frank. So it's good to see you today, Carey Frank. Thanks for joining me on the Zoom here.
No problem. Thanks.
How you? How you holding up during this super fun 2020?
I'm doing okay. I think just similar to everyone else. At least, especially those who are full-time musicians like me, or really almost any job. Everything just kind of got shifted on March 13th, and learning how to live life at the moment. But it's been okay. I've always, in addition to performing and recording, I've always taught, and I've been teaching online for years, but this just forced me to really get better and at that, and primarily pretty much only do that. Just like, again, every other musician in the world is probably thinking about how to teach online right now, you know?
Yeah. When was the last time you played with other musicians?
Well, actually, I just did, a few weeks ago, or less than a week ago, I got together with some friends in a friend's house. We were distant and wore masks, but we just jammed for fun. Before that, a live stream gig. I think it's still on YouTube. And then other than that, I did like one or two garage shows. But other than that, no, my last gig was around March 12th or something like that, you know, and then I had many gigs booked, you know, after that, including like playing at Stagecoach and a bunch of other just stuff. And then I was supposed to be in Europe all of June and July, and that got canceled. And so just home.
That sucks. I'm sorry that, I mean.
Good. I mean, that's, you know, everyone else, it's the same thing with every other musician in the world. The funny thing is, like, I've talked to a lot of musician friends, and it's like, if you would have mentioned to any of us about, say, 5 months ago that in a month or two, every musician in the entire world will have their tours canceled and not one venue will be open, you would have thought, like, yeah, right. You know, but that's how it is, you know?
Yeah. You must miss live playing. Is that what you must miss it all? Is that your favorite aspect of even being a musician, is playing live? I mean, everything has its joys, I'm sure, but like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's kind of a mix of everything. You know, I've been playing live. I've been really playing since I was in high school, starting with, like, I'm from South Florida, so starting with a lot of, you know, Jewish weddings, and my grandfather was a Jewish klezmer musician, so he did a lot of weddings and bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, and I would work for him in retirement homes, and then in college I lived in Orlando and went to school in Orlando, so I worked full-time at Disney World and Cirque du Soleil and Blue Man Group, so I did all that stuff, and so I've been performing since high school, and I miss just being on stage and playing. I've never not had more than, you know, 2 nights off, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
So, very weird. I mean, it's great. I'm really enjoying being home every night for the first time since high school, but it is, you know, I miss it. It's weird.
Yeah. What about your life and your early years? Was that when you first started playing music, was in your high school years? What about even elementary school? Were you playing any instruments? Were you listening to music? Where were you musically, like, when you were a real young kid?
Yeah, sure. I started when I was 3. I started taking piano lessons.
Wow.
Yeah, came from like I said, my grandfather was a musician. My other grandfather was a musician. My mom is musical. She took music lessons. She's not a professional musician. And then both my parents are always going to shows and live music and musicals, and they always took me to stuff. Music was always there. And then I went to a great small school, and the music teacher and I really connected, and he really worked with me one-on-one for all my middle and high school, and really got me kind of where I needed to be to, eventually go to college. And then when I went to college is when I was already kind of gigging and started working at Disney and all that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it got serious fast, like in high school age. But what about like when you were even younger? Were you playing instruments in elementary school, middle school? What were you listening to? Different kinds of music, like popular music outside of Grandpa's klezmer music?
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember what exactly I was listening to. I just remember I was always listening to music. Probably that young, it was whatever my parents listened to, which
right.
I was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan and Beatles. And my mom grew up in upstate New York near Woodstock, so all of that stuff, Paul Simon. And then from my dad's side and my dad's father, who was the klezmer musician, all of the like jazz standards and jazz. And so I was just always listening to music and just had music. I don't remember really any like pop or anything. I don't remember anything specific. It was just always
music. But that kind of sounds like is that kind of like who you are as a musician? Almost like the combination of your mom and your dad. You get the jazz side from your dad, and the more like popular rock and classic rock and 60s music from your mom. Is that kind of like your big influences stylistically, how you would describe it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think and I think just like probably most musicians, we all know, like either famous or not famous, that's just how it was the perfect combination of like both parents or just what was there, you know what I mean? As well as classical music. If there was a musical in town, like from Phantom of the Opera to whatever modern musical, I mean, that's just, it was all that, So to go back to the other question, I started with piano when I was 3. Eventually I took other instrument lessons like guitar lessons. What else? Took saxophone lessons. I've always been good at like picking up an instrument, figuring out how to use it. But piano and kind of guitar really turned it. Now I play ukulele more, but it's really been piano and keyboards have been my main instrument.
Right. And what about like when you were in like high school? You were telling me that those were kind of like big years for piano playing, expanding your sound and all that.
My teacher in high school, his name is Zohar. He's Israeli, and he was more of a gigging musician than like a band director at a school. So he really helped me just learn like gig tunes. So like, like jazz standards that I would need to know for a gig, or Beatles songs, like tunes or songs that a music teacher at a high school and middle school wouldn't normally teach a middle schooler.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it really got me ready for real life. Cause then as a gigging musician at bars and whatever, even when I played with Tedeschi Trucks, we did a lot of Beatles stuff. Like they liked, trying to remember some of the ones that we did, but there were some that I remember I learned way back in high school,
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you weren't playing much of like that type of music up until that point, but he just got you more focused on playing that type of music.
I think it was more focused. I think everyone kind of knows that, I remember when was the first time you heard, something.
But he helped flesh it out, like really get a little bit more of the nuances and in the song into your playing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's exciting. That's how more teachers should be from a more practical standpoint. It's not that you shouldn't teach, March, what is it, the Overture of 1812 or whatever, and all these things, and
everything's helpful.
Concert band, but like the other stuff is fun.
Right. Everything's
useful.
helpful. It's also it's also the kind of musician you are. If you're the music teacher, he was just a gigging musician, mainly a wedding singer, wedding guitar player, and fell into this small high school and middle school in South Florida, and it was just the perfect combination for me. But it might not be good for others. Like I already had that strong motivation. It was wherever it came from, it was just always there. He was just the right guidance for me. He did not work well with other students who didn't end up being professional musicians. It was just the perfect match with me.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about were you forming bands at this point as well outside of school? Like what were you doing creatively?
Not really until, high school and later on in high school, but bands. I was always kind of just writing my own stuff and playing with bands within the school. I wasn't, to be honest, most weekends I was working. I was working even in high school, like at weddings and gigging. Usually
solo?
Yeah, solo piano, like jazz cocktail hours at a wedding or a private event. I did almost every weekend. I had like at least one or two gigs. And
what did everyone think of seeing this like at these events? Saying, because did you look young for your age? Did you look older for your age? Did you look your age? And what did the other kids think of who were your age? Think of like being a working musician.
Yeah, I always kind of looked a little older, and try to present myself older. I honestly, I didn't miss out on any parties, or I didn't feel like I missed out on any parties. That just wasn't my thing. I just wanted playing music and getting paid for it. You
were at parties.
I was at parties, yeah. I mean, different parties.
In some ways better. Well, I don't know. I guess it's a case by case basis, but it seemed like you enjoyed that life. You enjoyed all the music. You've always loved it. It seems like you've always taken it seriously, and you seem like, I don't know you personally, but like a mature guy, and I'm guessing you were probably always that way. Were you always a serious musician and just like
it was
a mature person? Were you ever a kid who got in trouble or anything like that?
Yeah. Even when I got home from a gig, I probably got in trouble, but it just, I was always trying to be professional, and because every gig, I always, from the beginning, I just kind of knew, like, you never know where this gig might lead to. You never know who will be at that party, or, you always need to look presentable. You need to show up on time or early. You always need to have a good repertoire and sound good, look good. I just always knew, like, you never know where it's going to lead. That was just always there. And I think probably that came from my teacher, Zohar, from my high school teacher. He also showed us, how to make or look through like a contract, even for a wedding or a corporate event. Like I would still make an invoice and a contract and having like a set list and well, I need to have like this power strip and need like stuff that you just don't, they don't teach you in music school, but you just, as a gig player, if I want to show up to a wedding gig, you got to have a power strip with you. You have to have tape to put on the floor, because if not, someone's going to trip on it, or the event planner is going to yell at you and say you can't have that power strip there. Or, there's a million things that you just don't know until you deal with it. And it was, I don't know. It's always just been there. Like just be professional, show up on time, just do what you're supposed to do, and you'll get paid.
I see. That's the goal. Do you still keep in touch with this music teacher, Zohar? Yeah.
I mean, we talk maybe every few months or so, especially if I go to visit my folks in Florida. I'll try to see him.
That's cool. What were your like plans for your life, your music career, or anything else? Like in high school, like where did you see your life going? Whether it was college, studying, professional goals, even down the line, like where did you see yourself headed?
Good question. It's always been this. It's always been music. I knew I wanted to go to college to major in music. At the time, I didn't really think. Well, I kind of had a lot of options. I knew I wanted to get at least one or at least 2 degrees, like go to my undergrad and then get a bachelor's in music. I had pretty long-term plans, eventually landing in Los Angeles. Again, from South Florida. So I kind of had a plan. I wanted to go to undergrad somewhere in Florida. Orlando ended up being the best decision. I went to University of Central Florida. I immediately connected with my private teacher. Again, it was a great one-on-one experience with that piano teacher, and we're still very close friends. Him and I speak a lot together. And as well as, so between the connection with that teacher and knowing out of all the schools in Florida, Orlando is the best town to kind of live in as a gigging musician, especially the fact that, again, now it's different today, but when I was there, because of Disney World and all the other theme parks, immediately it was just, I just fell into that world and it worked out great. And then eventually moved to Los Angeles to do my master's at USC. And, but looking back at it, that was the plan for a very long time. It was to always just be a gigging musician, eventually get a master's degree so that I can teach. Yeah, it was just, and then within gigging musician, that could mean, I always knew like I could teach, I could tour, perform, record, whatever else there is to do.
That's cool. So it sounds like, yeah, all different things, recording and teaching and touring and writing and and doing solo stuff, working with other people. You're just very, very open. I guess that's how most musicians are. You got to be open to possibilities. What was your like major in undergrad? Did you say?
Jazz piano. Just it was a Bachelor of Music in jazz piano, and then my master's is a Master of Music in, I think, jazz studies.
Were you teaching music before you formally were studying it in college? Were you always like kind of like teaching on the side and things like that?
Yeah, I always had private students. Even many have been much older than me.
Yeah. When did you start teaching?
I feel like I know I had some students even when I was in high school. Like I remember going to students' house, especially when I finally got my driver's license, and then in college I was teaching. Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been teaching.
Piano,
ukulele, even just songwriting.
Right. What do you notice some of the biggest challenges teaching music to either kids or adults? Like, there might be different challenges within those different instruments and songwriting and all that. But what do you see over and over again where students fail or struggle, or you struggle as a teacher?
That's a good question. What's the biggest struggles? Actually, yeah, that's what I was going to say about. How do you say this? Being a student who might be too hard on themselves, and then them creating like their own wall, and them having to tackle this big wall, and being too hard on themselves, I think would be
right.
Especially getting especially teaching adults maybe who feel like they should be learning something faster than they are learning it. But, I always try to tell all my students, there's no rush, just enjoy it. There's no rush, because if you try to speed it up, it'll be harder. That's probably the biggest tackle.
What are some of the, anything notable, teaching moments, even over the years? Does anything jump out at you? You had a student who had a great success, either even just a moment in a class or in a lesson that you remember, or something like that. Does anything jump out at you as far as highlights of teaching? A parent was so proud or something like that of a job you did, anything like that?
All of that has happened. I've had many proud parents, and
that's great.
I guess can't think of one in particular, but I do remember being in I teach at a college right now in Pasadena called Los Angeles College of Music. And I also do private lessons right now, but being in one of those practice rooms with a student, whatever we were working on, I just remember that student whatever we were talking about, something just like clicked, and you could tell, which I've had that moment too. And every musician, I'm sure, has had that moment where it's just like it clicks, and you could kind of see it in the student where I get it now. And
that's fun.
Yeah.
Those moments in life, they all should be like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about after college? Where did your kind of career progress from there? Where did we go?
So after Orlando, I moved to University of Southern California here in LA.
That's right.
Majoring in getting my master's in jazz studies, and I mainly chose to go to USC as like an in to LA. Like I couldn't imagine just moving out here. I didn't know anyone out here. I have family down in Orange County, but that's far from I've never even been to LA. I just knew I wanted to get to LA, but how do I move here without knowing anyone? And I just show up and, hey, I'm here. So I went to USC to, kind of help me get into town. And it was great. Right away, I made some really close friends that I'm still close with. On top of even just everything I learned from USC, but also a lot of it was the connections. And then events, and it took a while to start working in LA because there's a lot of, as you know, amazing musicians.
Right.
So it took about a year and a half to start working, which was up until then and up until now, the first time that I didn't work for long, because I was working throughout high school and college.
Yeah. Tell me about that period and that adjustment, and it must have been hard. Like, what was that like?
I remember I was calling my piano teacher who I was close with in Orlando. I'd call him just to kind of like vent, like, is this, I was working every night in Orlando. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. And I remember telling him, so from gigging like almost every night, I always had cash just from most gigs, some gigs either paid in cash or I would get cash tips from gigs. So I just remember coming out here and then not working for over a year. It was the first time in my life I ever had to go to an ATM to withdraw cash.
Yeah.
So just like, I remember telling that to my teacher, and yet again, that's happening right now because there's no gigs.
What led to finally being able to start to land some gigs after a year and a half? What was it? Just that you got your face and name out there? Was it that your skill level changed? What was it? A combination of these things?
Yeah, it was. My very first gig was at have you ever been to the Rockwell in Los Feliz?
Maybe.
It's well known now for every Wednesday night. That's where Jeff Goldblum performs with his jazz band.
Yeah.
So that was the first venue I played at. It was with like a Johnny Cash type of singer. And it was funny, like that very first gig, it was with someone I went to USC with on saxophone, and then other guys who I'm now very close friends with, but at the time they were all strangers. And I was just a new piano player in town. And it's funny because that gig, the singer, I don't even remember his name. It might've been Johnny something, but it was one of those things that paid great for a Tuesday night gig at a bar that not many people came to. It paid really good. And sure enough, is one of those things, like he told us like, oh yeah, I'll mail you the check, when I get the check from the venue. And then he disappeared. And then all of the band members had to like chase him down. And then he
wow.
Excuses about his wife and this and that. And it was just one of those things like, this is a weird first gig in LA. But shortly after that, I started working, and then I started really working a lot, going to all the jam sessions and networking and all that stuff. And then
Gotcha, yeah.
Now I'm more known as an organ player than really a piano player. And a lot of that came from, I've always played organ. And I eventually just bought one, like a real vintage Hammond B3 and Leslie speaker. And it was almost like that day, then on, I worked every night, because it's a very specialized instrument, especially if you bring a real one to all your gigs, which is something I do. Like I have a minivan and I bring it, unload it to every gig by myself. And so it was like that night I never had an issue getting a gig since.
The organ, thank the organ. What are the major differences between just playing piano or a keyboard and playing organ, tackling it?
There are big differences. They're both similar in that they're both keyboard instruments, but difference in that, say piano versus an organ, sonically, one organ is electric. The organ is coming out of a Leslie speaker, which has a spinning tone wheel cabinet or spinning cabinet. So if you've seen Tedeschi trucks, you'll see there's the Leslie speaker right next to the keyboard, and it's got that spinning wheel. There's one on top and one on the bottom. There's two keyboards on top. You can change sounds and stuff, but it's a vintage instrument, so it's real tubes and fuses, and it just sounds
powerful, cool, vintage sound, electric. That's versatile enough to play with lots of different bands, and a lot of rock bands, of course. So that's probably is that primarily what you? I mean, what are the types of gigs that you use the organ for primarily?
So one thing I left out was you don't have to do this, obviously, but just like in Tedeschi trucks, but it typically has bass pedals so that you play with your feet. So I do a lot of what's called organ trio gigs in a jazz setting. So I'm playing the bass with my feet and a little left hand, but it's kind of 50-50 left hand foot. So it's like organ, guitar, and drums is like a typical instrumental setting for organ trio. And big with jazz. If you know the band Soul Live, that's the instrumentation for Soul Live.
Right.
And so that's a main thing of what I do. Again, because I play bass pedals, which is, it's unique to play organ and bring a real organ to the gig. It's even more unique to also play the bass pedal. So I'm very specialized in that, and that's again helped me tremendously. But so to answer your question, jazz, rock, even reggae, funk. My main kind of touring gig right now, which, like I said, I was supposed to be in Europe right now, is with Social Distortion, which is like a punk rock band, and I mainly play organ in that band.
What do you enjoy the most of all those different genres? I mean, is it you love it all, and it all depends on your mood and the opportunity and whatever you're playing in the moment? Like, is that pretty much it?
Too.
And what's that?
Depends on the money, also.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as you're saying that. Yep.
What do I love the most is it's just different. I love playing something different each night, like not just different songs, but like I love playing jazz last night, and then tonight I'm playing with a punk rock band, and then tomorrow night I'm playing solo piano, and then the next night I'm playing, with a jam band, and then whatever, and then during the day I'm usually on a regular day I'm teaching either private lessons, either online or at my house or at that college I was telling you about, or I'm at a recording session or a rehearsal for one of those bands. Like it's a lot of just different music, and that's what I love the most. And that's mainly why I wanted to move out to LA, because there's so much of every genre versus sounds, especially like New York, where it's mainly jazz, Nashville, mainly rock, country, even Orlando, which was mainly the entertainment theme park kind of music, which was fun, but it's the exact same show every day, sometimes 5 times a day. So I love the versatile, something different every day.
That's cool. Why don't we get into Tedeschi Trucks and how you got connected with them? But before that, because I'm looking at your credits here, you've played with quite a few amazing musicians. Are there any highlights of your career up until meeting Tedeschi Trucks that's worth
up until meeting
that jumped out at you?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorites, which was a big LA, I really felt like I was living in LA, was I played it was just a dinner party in Malibu for I don't remember whose house it was or who it was for, but all I remember was Martin Short, Wayne Gretzky, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, hockey player.
David Foster, Dan Aykroyd, all these people were there, and I was just playing background solo piano, and then Dan Aykroyd comes and Martin Short comes, and they just kind of like start singing with me. It was That was
Wow.
a big LA moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was one. And then, yeah, that was probably the first that comes to mind. At least pre Tedeschi Trucks.
Yeah, when was that?
That was a long time. That was probably 6 years ago.
That event. And how did you get connected to TTB?
Through TTB was through living in LA, I am friendly with Tim's now wife, Rachel Eckroth, Tim Lefebvre, who's TTB's bassist for a long time. I didn't know Tim I think we met once or twice at some parties, but I knew his now wife, then girlfriend, Rachel, just from being another keyboard player in town. And it was just one of those very, very random things. She kind of texted, I think she texted me, hey, Tim's going to text or call you soon. And I was, okay. And then Tim called me and he said, hey, you have any interest in playing with Derek Trucks? And I was like, okay. And to back up, from living in LA, and I'm sure you might know this feeling too, but I've just, up until that, and now, I've kind of learned to, and just no offense to LA, but it's something about this town where I don't believe it until I'm sitting.
Until you see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, and I learned that lesson from, many things, especially one in particular where I met this big producer. I'll leave his name out, but I met a big producer, and we got together, and there was this young artist that he was managing and kind of turning into the next big thing, and he wanted me to be the music director, and we rehearsed, and then I had to audition drummers, and we spent however many days auditioning however many drummers. Then we finally found the right drummer. We rehearsed like once or twice a week for weeks, like literally weeks, and then we had warm-up gigs. And it was one of those things where it was like going to be a big thing. They were paying me, or they told me they were going to pay me. And then we had our first gig. It was a great show. We rehearsed a few more times, had this other gig, and the artist just wasn't doing well that night. Like, it was just like a weird night. He was off, but whatever. And then all of a sudden everyone just disappeared. The management disappeared. The artist disappeared. And we put weeks into almost months at this point into this thing. So and so I just learned from this experience, don't trust it until you're sitting on stage. Anyways, so so Rachel texted me, Tim called me, cool. And then sure enough, an hour later, first Derek's manager Blake called me, told me the scoop, and then about an hour later Derek called me. And then from that point, so at that time, I literally just gave notice to move out of my apartment to move into another apartment. I then had to kind of put that on hold. So I packed up. So I had like 2 days to pack up my whole apartment because I was moving in, 4 days or something like that.
Oh, man.
Pack everything up. I also had to learn about 60 Tedeschi Truck songs in these 2 days. So stressed I've ever been was, I don't think I slept or ate. I just learned songs in between packing up boxes. Eventually, I think I went to Tim's house once or twice, and we ran through some stuff. He kind of helped me with a few things. And then 2 days before, I think it was like June 27th or something, I flew to Jacksonville to rehearse with Derek and Sue. And then our first show was on my birthday, July 1st. And that's it.
So basically, they offered you was it a few shows to fill in for Kofi at the time? It wasn't an audition. It wasn't anything like that. They sounded like they offered you, and you just had to learn the songs and just be ready. Is that how it went down, basically?
Yeah. So what I learned was, so I have a lot of videos on my Instagram and YouTube, literally just GoPro videos, nothing fancy or anything. And it's just, I just like to put a GoPro at my keyboard at gigs, press record, and then I can chop it up and post things on my Instagram later. Turns out, I guess Derek told me he looked up a lot of those videos. That was kind of like my audition. And then I guess after talking to Derek also, they were kind of expecting me to not know any of the songs and really spend those 2 days at Derek's house, actually them teaching me the song. So like the first day, it was kind of like I landed, me and Tim flew to Jacksonville together from LA. We got to Derek's house. He picked us up from the airport. We hung out that night. Then the next morning we went to the studio to rehearse the tunes, and he called some song and I played it and it was great. Okay, next song. And they were expecting to teach me all these songs. They didn't realize prepared. So I think that helped. That's
awesome. They must have been pleased or impressed or both or.
Yeah. So this is all for that 2017 Wheels of Soul tour, which was that full month, their monthly tour, summerly tour. And then I did 1 or 2 tours after, and then the Beacon was where Kofi wasn't expecting to be ready. He wasn't expecting to be ready until, the December or something, but by October he seemed to be ready. And so he came back for that show, but their management was afraid something just in case. So they kind of flew me there as like backup. So I sat behind every show. I came in and sat in like a few nights, and yeah.
That's awesome. What songs do you remember, if any, being particularly challenging, or parts of songs that when you were learning that even maybe Tim helped you with, or that, the band had to kind of like, show you or whatever, how it goes or something like that?
Yeah, it's the most challenging parts were, I guess, trying to find Kofi's sound on the organ. Like I said about organ, there's different drawbar settings and there's a million parameters to make a million different sounds. So to try to mimic a very specific sound, especially one of Kofi's sounds, is very tough. So
yeah, I imagine so.
So Derek was very open to just let me do my thing. Tim was more kind of like, try to get that sound locked in. So I kind of try to meet them halfway and kind of try to find the sound, but also make it my version. And there were some songs like Midnight in Harlem, that organ intro sound, da-da, do-do-do-do-do. That's a very specific sound that took me a while to find how he got that sound. What else? Some of the clav stuff was kind of tough to just find his same sound. But again, I was constantly trying to find like the balance between what Kofi did, what I'm going to do,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense for sure. Do you remember your first gig with the band?
Yeah. Again, it was my birthday, and it was maybe New England. I'm sure any people listening to this will know. Maybe they'll know right away the July 1st, 2017 concert. But it was somewhere in the Northeast, and it was a beautiful venue. And it was my first show. It felt comfortable. All my nerves went away when I landed in Jacksonville and Sue gave me a big hug. So I right away felt comfortable, on top of also preparing. And if I didn't prepare, I'm sure it would have been. But it felt comfortable. And then at the end of the show, Sue thanked me, and they said they all sang me happy birthday from the stage. I'll never forget that.
That's great. Was that one of the best experiences musically in your life or career or whatever? I mean, I'd imagine so.
I think so. Yeah. A lot of that whole tour, between that first night playing at Red Rocks, 2 sold out nights at Red Rocks, sitting next to John Medeski. One of those nights. It was pretty big.
For sure. Do you get nervous on stage or for gigs or ever anything like that? I mean, what would make you nervous? Is it the size of the crowd? Is it like trying to impress Derek and Susan, or is it the how much money the gig is paying you, or like what stresses you out or whatever?
You can't really think about trying to impress specific people, because I've noticed if you spend too much time thinking about trying to impress whoever or trying to just focus too much on one thing, something else kind of falls to its side. So I just trying to just enjoy it, be in the moment. As far as making me nervous, I guess leading up to something might be the nervous part of it. But then once you walk on stage,
Right.
everyone is there for you, not for me in particular, but everyone wants you to put on a good show. Like it's, and I've noticed it is way more nerve wracking to be in front of an audience of 10 to 20 people than it is in front of 10,000 people. It's just something about, not seeing, you can't see any faces, like they're too far away, and it's just not nerve wracking. It's just, all you see is this wall, especially at a place like Red Rocks. But
makes sense.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the things or something you learned from playing with Tedeschi Trucks Band, either, behind the scenes or on stage? What jumps out at you as far as like, things like that?
Yeah. I guess I learned from Derek just how to be, he's very musical without having to talk about music. I don't know. He just has a very relaxed sense of being. Maybe it comes from being a child prodigy, and like touring since he was 9 or 8 or whatever. But he never really talks much about music outside of on stage or rehearsing. He was just always enjoying life. I remember asking him about like fans, and because I went with him, me, Derek, Tim, and Derek's son Charlie went to a baseball game on July 4th, and it's just everywhere we went, Derek was recognized, and I think I asked him, like, how do you deal with fans, like, just like, what if you're just not in the mood? And he said, if they're cool, he's cool. If they start to be kind of not cool, then he won't be cool. And it's just be cool. That's just kind of what I learned from them. And then Sue, just being a great, tour mother. They own their bus, the big red bus, and Sue does, at least when I was there, she was doing laundry. She's just a great mother. There was one night actually I got food poisoning, and I was up late. I was up, and she was always kind of up late, and I was just sitting up in the front of the bus, just kind of going through that motion, and she was just there rubbing my back, and yeah, she's just a great mother.
Yes, the tour mom, the band mom. What did you call her?
The tour mother, I think.
The tour mother. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I seen the picture of her with the guitar slung over her shoulder and the laundry, getting the laundry out of. That's the dryer.
Yeah, that's real. But other things from that tour. Well, another thing, to go back to Derek and his loyalty to management. Like, he's had the same manager, Blake, since very early on. I don't know if it was his first manager, but I know he's been with that same manager for a long time. They've had the same lighting crew and tech and road guys, and like, they own their own bus. They have their bus driver. They have like their people, and they've figured out this great system.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Seems like it for sure. Yeah, that must have been just a fun time to tour with them. And what about the rest of the band? I mean, and interacting with them was everyone just cool? Any fist fights on the tour? No, none of that.
Everyone was very cool. Everyone, I was way younger than everyone else in the band. I noticed everyone tends to just sleep all day and kind of do their own thing. I wanted to. I toured many times before Tedeschi Trucks, but not on a level of a band like Tedeschi Trucks in terms of budget and hotels and all that, and all that stuff. And I've always done like minivan tours. So like, you do the driving, you gotta load your stuff in, you gotta do sound check, then you gotta hang by the equipment so no one takes it, You got to pack up after. You got to hang with the singer while she sells merch because she can't really be alone at the bar. You got to pack the car up. You got to drive to the hotel. It's usually a cheap hotel, so you got to load the stuff into the hotel room with you. You know, I've done all those tours. So to do a tour like the way Tedeschi Trucks tours like that, I just enjoyed being there, and I was always exploring. If I had a day off, I especially explored as far as I could go on a budget or Uber or whatever. Walking around the venues. The hardest part for me was that everyone tended to do their own thing. Everyone either napped all day or Derek and Sue kind of did their thing.
Right.
So it was hard. It's one thing like maybe a weekend or the first week you're kind of doing your own thing. It's cool. But then by like the second week, third week, fourth week, that's when it's like, okay, I miss my bed. I miss home,
Right. It got to be a real tour. So you got, the road can wear on you, I guess, even.
Yeah, it's tough. So yeah, since then I've done, I've done much longer tours. And yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to tour,
Yeah, I mean, what did BB King say? They're paying him to tour, and he does the show for free, but the travel is really what they're paying him to do, and all the everything else that comes with that.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was amazing.
Yeah, of course, it was still amazing, and you miss it too. I mean, that's the maybe irony is not the right word, but you're still itching to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance. It's like up until this lockdown or the pandemic in early March, I was working almost the most I've ever worked from. I was driving down to Orange County every day to rehearse with Social Distortion for this summer tour that we were supposed to do, as well as we're recording a new album. Before driving all the way down, which for those who don't know, down in Orange County from living up in LA, that could be with traffic like 2 to 3 hour drive if we had to be there at 3, or if we were done at like 5:30. Driving back from Costa Mesa at 5:30 to LA is not fun.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
So for literally weeks, I was teaching or rehearsing or something in the morning, driving down there, driving back to do a gig, sometimes starting at 10 p.m. in Hollywood. And this was like that for days. So up until the pandemic, I was really like, I need a day off or I need a week off. I'm just
You got more than that.
And one day, every gig got canceled, and still canceled. So be careful what you wish for.
I guess so. But wow, great stories, great stuff all around. I appreciate your time and sharing everything with me. Why don't you tell people where they can find you, follow you, anything else you're working on or you want to talk about, any other TTB moments or highlights? I'm open to hearing that. I'll kind of give you the floor and then let you get on with the rest of your day. Hey,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess for any of those on Instagram, you can follow me at Carey Frank Music. My website is my name, careyfrank.com. And like I said earlier, I've been teaching a lot online during this time. I've really, because of all of this, and I'm home, and I've really worked on having my home teaching studio set up. Like we said earlier, every day is kind of getting a little better. I actually just got a new mic, a better stand that just arrived, but of course it doesn't fit this microphone. So, every day there's something new that you either
it's a battle, I know,
or you got to return or something. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of teaching, posting videos, clinics, and anything else. I guess if you go to my website, you can join my mailing list. I keep that pretty up to date about like any shows coming up, any deals on merch or CDs or any of that stuff, And then with Tedeschi Trucks, let me think of another. The best part of all of it was, doing the Orpheum, not the Orpheum, the
Red Rock, not Red Rocks.
The Beacon run, where I got to watch Kofi, every night, and just being able to just watch, like, oh, that's how he played that song, and then he'd invite me to come sit in. There was there were a few times where I played piano and he played flute. That was really great. And then we became friends. We would text. I still, I'm never gonna obviously delete his phone number, but I still have. Let's see if I search Kofi. Yeah, just him. We text. Our last text was in. Where is it? I guess a little over a year ago, and just us texting like, "Hey, how's it going? Just listening to this," and
yeah. Don't make me cry. Come on, man.
I know it's weird. Actually,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Here, let's see if I can play this.
Dude, thanks so much, man. Peace to Carey. Thanks for the birthday wishes, bro. I'm out here in Santa Cruz right now. Teal's got me playing a Grateful Dead set today, and actually this afternoon. But I hope to run into you sometime soon, bro. All right. Thanks for thinking of me, man. Peace.
That was we were just texting because it was his birthday.
Right.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, it's cool that you got to know him, even if just for a short while, and have a friendship and a relationship with him. And that's what it seems like he had with pretty much everyone that he came in contact with. Based on the fans and some other people that I've talked to just on this podcast. Everyone's says all positive things, but beyond that, just saying what kind of a friendly person he was, and a personable person, and a people person, even more so than everyone in the band, basically. And that's from my personal experiences too. Just a few times I've been to shows, interacting with him for a few moments, you could see how excited he, always was to talk to fans and talk to everyone.
Yeah, he just wanted to be happy and play music. But just to go back to how hard it is being on the road, that's, unfortunately living on the road, you don't eat healthy, you don't get to exercise as much as you might want to, and it's a tough life, especially if you have a heart condition,
Yeah. But on that note, I definitely, again, appreciate your time, and look forward to more music and hopefully more live music soon. I'll definitely keep an eye on those things from you, and we'll talk soon.
I appreciate that. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
You got to take care now.
Man.
So there you go. My conversation with Carey Frank. I really appreciate Carey taking the time and for sharing his story with me. It means a lot, and I did enjoy the shows he did with TTB, and did get a chance to see him perform in Los Angeles. I remember when concerts were a thing. Anyway, hope everyone out there is hanging in there. For now, to check out this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. And of course, remember to tap subscribe or follow on iTunes, Spotify, or whichever way you listen to this show. Again, positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. But yeah, that's about all I got for today. And again, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Later.